you know, 96% of repairs have been completed, and yet, which sounds good, and yet, you know, what we're hearing from the ward councillors in West Green, where Broadwater Farm is located, is that, and you know, obviously there's lots of photos, lots of examples. We don't want to go into the details of individual cases here, but the general picture we're getting is of stuff getting reported, not getting done, or when the repairs are done, that what's done is not really up to standard, and that lots of money has been invested with little evidence of anything happening, and that's not the picture we're getting from the reports in the papers. So I'd just like really to have that discrepancy between the picture that we're getting as scrutiny panel members from ward councillors and what we're seeing in the reports. I'd like that to be addressed, really.
Judith, would you like to come in on those issues?
Yes. So in terms of the investment, most of the sort of big capital investment's been internal. So it was related to the heating system. 300 properties have had new kitchens or bathrooms or both. So a lot of the issues that we've got on the Broadwater Farm at the moment are actually to do with the communal areas and structure and fabric, which the capital investment on that has been delayed because of the stuff that you heard earlier in terms of the investment in the regeneration of the wider estate. And I think we completely acknowledge that the way in which we've managed communal repairs needs to be different. Because we are doing a lot of them, but they're not having the impact. And also, I completely agree with the ward councillors that some of them haven't been completed or done to the standard that we would expect them to be done to. So we are taking a number of different approaches outlined in the report. So we did block surveys at the beginning of August. We identified over 1,000 outstanding repairs, and to date we've completed, we identified 330 outstanding repairs, and to date we've completed 93 of them, which is about 30% of them. And we need to be really proactive about some of the other stuff like roof repairs and things like that during pre-winter when we're going to get high levels of rain. So I think we acknowledge that we need to be more proactive and treat Broadwater Farm differently in terms of how we manage it, partly because of the deferred capital investment, but I think also big complicated blocks with structural issues that have definitely have more challenges on some of the repairs, which we'll need to address through the capital investment that we do going forward, but are causing us some issues at the moment. So we do need to be proactive, look at how we're doing them and identify stuff and react to it rather than relying on people to report repairs. What we have found is actually quite a lot of the repairs raised by members hadn't previously been reported to us, but we do have a big presence on the estate, so we need to be out there proactively identifying those communal repairs when they're happening. So hopefully that answers your question about the discrepancy between the funding and where we've got the issues on the estate.
Okay. I mean, I think we need to take a closer look at this. Really, that maybe we're not going to have time to really go into all the issues today. But anyway, Councillor Ibrahim, you've got a question.
Thank you, Chair. And my question is to, again, the Cabinet member, but it can be answered by the officer, because obviously I know in Homes for Haringey there have been kind of changes in responsibility on this, And I have obviously, as Councillor Hare rightly pointed out, as the former Cabinet member, I have a huge interest in this because we invested a lot of money, particularly in the challenge that we faced at the time with the situation with Tangmere and Northolt, and we made a commitment to the residents of Broadwater Farm. And I'm glad that all of those internal repairs have been completed from what you've described. That's important too, but the commitment we made, and I know this is something, John, that you've always supported, is a holistic approach. It's whether you want to call it Decent Homes Plus, whether you want to call it holistic. And obviously I'm asking you because you were also up until recently a board member of Homes for Haringey and are very close to the issue. Why is it that when I went with the ward councillor over a month ago, you say that some of the works haven't been done, they've been done, but they've not been done very well. Well, where I was, it looked like nothing had been touched since 1987. I was in the Debden block, and it was actually quite shocking. I've never seen it in that condition. I understand it probably looks far worse because nothing's been done during the pandemic, but it doesn't look like all of that, any of that investment that we made, whilst it may have been spent on the internal works, we know that the challenge of communal areas is huge. And when can we be reassured that the residents of Broadwater Farm will be, you've said it needs to, Broadwater Farm needs to be treated differently. I completely agree, but we committed to do that 3 years ago. Why is Homes for Haringey 3 years down the line saying that this work still hasn't been finished?
Well, I don't think we made it. Well, I wasn't in your position 3 years ago, so I'm not aware of.
You were on the board of Homes for Haringey, councillor.
But there wasn't a commitment 3 years ago to an holistic approach.
Yes, there was.
Okay.
It was not, because I was on the board of Homes for Haringey until quite recently, and the issue of a holistic approach was only raised probably 3 or 4 board meetings before I left, and I was the actual member of that board who insisted that the holistic approach be pursued and not dropped, because there was pressure to drop it, and that will not happen. So when this estate, when the blocks that are not being knocked down are refurbished, a holistic approach will apply. Everything will be done. In the past, the communal areas have not been decorated for probably a generation. I agree with you, they look awful. There's been no money spent on those communal areas on that estate, probably since I've been a councillor, to be quite honest. So they do look bad. And the commitment is, when we do the blocks that are not being knocked down, the holistic approach will be done and everything will be done. And that will be done as soon as we can set it up, as soon as we can programme it and get the agreement of the Cabinet and whatever is needed.
Chair, can I respond on that?
It's a follow-up question. Have you got
aware,
a follow-up question?
Yeah. So in terms of a holistic approach, there was always a commitment for work to be done in the communal areas, and it sounds to me like the officer isn't saying that wasn't there, but all she's saying is that it's been delayed. So I'm not sure where what you've said has come from, but I do think, and I have taken into account that there's been changes in the management structures, etc. And I agree with you, this work has not been done for a generation, and I believe previously, whilst you may not have been the Cabinet member for the last 3 years, you've certainly been Cabinet member responsible for housing in previous times where Broadwater Farm was taken out of the Decent Homes programme.
Well, if I can come back there, I was not a Cabinet member 3 years ago. It's probably more like 7 years ago. I didn't say 3 years ago, I said I was. And Broadwater Farm was not taken out of the Decent Homes programme. It had all the health and safety issues done. It had all the roofing done. So it was in the Decent Homes programme, but it was restricted mainly to health and safety issues. The roofing and anything like that was done, so it wasn't taken out.
But not the internal works or the communal areas.
Well,
okay, fair enough.
Right, communal areas, when Decent Homes was in this borough, did not include that type of work in the projects. None of them.
But it did include the internal works.
What was that?
But it did include the internal works.
Decent Homes in this borough did not include communal decorations. Internal kitchens and bathrooms where needed, yes.
Okay, Councillor Tucker.
Yeah, can I just clarify what are the repairs that have been completed? And if I can just say, I'm just currently looking at 3 photographs that were taken only last week. I'm trying to find out which block they're from, which I have to say looks absolutely atrocious, that our residents are living in these kind of conditions.
Judith, have you got those photos, or you've had many photos, I know?
We have photos. I haven't got the breakdown of every single repair that's been completed, but since we did the block audits at the start of August, so there's been 93 repairs completed across the estate, divided across all the blocks fairly evenly. When we did the block audit, Debden was by far and away the worst, with 64 repairs identified. So we have been addressing them, and we're about a third of the way through. So far, sorry, my colleague's literally typing while we're talking. We've done some plastering and some electric works have been the main things we've been focusing on so far.
Can
I ask who did the block audits?
So the block audits were undertaken by 4 interns we had working with us over the summer. So we are currently recruiting a surveying resource to be dedicated to Broadwater Farm, but we didn't want to wait for that while we identified the repairs, and obviously you can tell by the number they identified that they've done a really thorough job.
Sorry, Chair, I'm not sure I heard that right. Who did the block audits?
Interns that we had over the summer. So
not actually our own staff. Unpaid.
Well, they weren't unpaid. They were paid and recruited for us over the summer. So they weren't unpaid staff. We wouldn't have unpaid interns within Homes for Haringey. They were paid by us over the summer.
Okay, so there were temporary staff paid by us.
Yes.
Presumably they had the appropriate qualifications and were managed professionally to conduct those audits.
So they're not qualified surveyors.
Just because the word intern suggests somebody with no experience or very, very limited experience and a low position in the hierarchy and not necessarily the right technical skills. And so I just wanted to clarify that we're talking about qualified professional staff who just happen to be on a temporary rather than a permanent contract to the council.
So they weren't surveyors, but they were fully trained before they went out, and we've had audits of the block. So we've had quality audits done by our current repairs manager, has gone out and done some quality audits with them, and also post the inspections being done to assure us that what they picked up was correct.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Barnes next.
Thank you. I think that there's a lot missing from this report, particularly around the times between when something is reported and when it's fixed. So it may be that 96% of things have been completed, but if something was reported in April 2019 and isn't fixed until July 2021, that's not very helpful for the resident or residents. And it also makes me wonder if some of these items that aren't being reported in the communal areas perhaps aren't reported because residents just think, well, it won't get done, so I can't really be bothered. That's not a question you can answer. It's just possibly how I might feel in that position. And I also wanted to ask if we do anything around satisfaction checks, both with the resident after a piece of work has been completed, and if there's spot checks on the quality of jobs, because if we're paying money to have work done and then it's not being done to a decent standard and we have to go back and do it again, or it's bodged or whatever, then that isn't good for the residents. It isn't good for the council, because the council budget's being spent doing a job 2 or 3 times, and it doesn't make anybody feel particularly good when they have a shoddy job done on their home. So how are we checking that, both as council, because the council's paying for it, and that residents are happy with jobs that are done? And can we get some kind of idea on the timelines between reporting an issue and when it's actually fixed?
Do you want me to come in on that one? So just in terms of timescales, we have published timescales for completing all of our repairs in 3 categories. So the 3 categories are emergencies, which need to be completed within 24 hours, routine repairs, which are completed within 20 working days, and planned repairs, which we complete within 60 working days. And we then report on overdues. So we actually run our statistics on overdue repairs across our KPIs, which are reported to the council's team, are reported on our KPIs of completed within timescales, not just completed. In terms of resident satisfaction, we do a resident satisfaction survey for all repairs completed through text, but as long as we've got a number for people, which generally we do have. And our resident satisfaction with repairs at the moment is sitting at high 80s. I think it's about 88% at the moment. There's been a slight fall during COVID in relation to that. In terms of post-work inspections of work, we have a target to carry out 10% of inspections on post-work, but actually these were suspended during COVID due to obviously not wanting to overly access people's homes. And we also had some staff who were working from home because of health conditions. So we reduced the amount of post-work inspections undertaken, but we're remobilising that at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, could I just have a follow-up?
Very briefly.
Would it be possible to get that information into the report about the timings and the satisfaction, or some kind of metric there, because it is missing?
Okay, can that be provided?
Yes, we can provide a subsequent with the details included as asked.
Okay, thanks. Now I can see nearly all the panel members have indicated we're nearly at 10 o'clock now. I just very quickly.
So mine is to Judith. So just to confirm that there isn't a funding issue. So the money is there to do these communal works. There's no funding issue.
There's no funding issue at all. And in fact, we want to spend the money we're spending more effectively than we currently are. The funding is there.
Thank you. And that's what I've always been led to believe. We allocated the funding, so I'd like to challenge what the cabinet member said, but that's for another day.
Bob, can you be just as brief?
Thank you, Chair. I'll do it briefly. I think we all should recognise the helpful letter received from one of the ward councillors covering Broadwater Farm. It has helped us focus and see some of the problems. I'd like to ask that be included as in the minutes in some fashion, ideally as written, as received by us. And I wonder how we can consider how we might take this forward, whether it's yet another little mini review or other way of focusing attention so that we get better performance and that the comments made by the ward councillor are addressed and so that they don't come up again.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I think so. We all, as panel members, received this email from Councillor Chandwani, and a number of officers were copied in. I don't think that included Judith, so I don't know if she's had a chance to see that. But I suppose, yeah, I was going to refer to that as well and say that really what it broadly says is, you know, a lot of money's been invested in Broadwater Farm. This is what I understand is the investment. I want to know what's happened to the money, because as far as I can tell, I can't see that it's been spent, or very little of it has been spent. And that's what I was hoping I would be getting an answer to that, the panel would be getting an answer to that in the report that came. And the report that came, unfortunately, perhaps that was my fault as chair for not communicating clearly enough. But I don't feel that has really been answered in the report that's been provided. And I really think that you know, that we really need to look in some detail and not in broad brush at what money has been invested, at what point and for what purpose by the council or from other sources, and where has that money gone in kind of granular detail. That's what we want to see, so that we can really have a look at. Now we're really at the end of the meeting now.
Do you want to extend the meeting for 10 minutes, Chair? Suspend standing orders for 10 minutes?
I second that.
Can we make it 5?
10's fine.
Because I think we can dispense with the final item on the agenda, which is the work plan, and just say that we'll catch up on that outside the meeting.
Can I propose that we do a site visit to Broadwater Farm?
I would really support that, because I know you've had a chance to do that, Councillor Ibrahim. I was actually away on holiday when that happened, so I don't think we should spend
too much time in terms of, because what the officer has made clear to us is the money is there.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the money is there and always has been, then what we need to do is go on a site visit and have a look at exactly what needs to be done, and send an action plan over to officers.
Could I, Chair, have we suspended standing orders for 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Okay, let's say 10 and try for 5. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've suspended for 10 if we're agreed.
In that case, could I just? I think that's a good suggestion, Councillor Ibrahim, and I'd support that. But I just wonder whether it's not, we shouldn't be there to just look at this momentary thing. It is about the principles of what's happening. In other words, what's happening to the inspections, what's happening to reports, and that isn't something that we can just assess in a visit. So do we, as a panel, think that it's worth having a more focused look at this issue? How can we address it, and how can we get a result? Do we want a half-day focus or a 2-hour focus or whatever?
Councillor Ajay.
Yeah, fine's been suggested in terms of site visit, but I just was going to ask, maybe as part of our work when we carry out or get the officers to provide, I was going to ask if all the work that's been done, who actually goes out to check that they've actually been done, you know, whether it's 21 days emergency or 5 days or whatever it is, or planned maintenance, who actually goes out to check that the work has been done, you know, either through a contractor or the council officer, because there's quite a lot of stuff that the officer has said that we do, or that I say we, Homes for Haringey does, but and then you hear from residents saying, oh, this hasn't been completed, that hasn't been done, and that's why you have all these issues. So someone should be able to go back to verify, like what Viola did a while back, when we were having, so that someone goes after to check if it's been done. It's good use of time, I think, in terms of the investment. Money has been no issue because it's always been there. So I think we need to do that to ensure that, you know, the residents feel confident in terms of what we're doing and officers have been doing. That's the point I was just going to make, because I think we've been going round for a while.
Okay, so can we agree that at least initially that we'll go on a site visit, which was Councillor Ibrahim's suggestion, and then take it from there. So let's get that arranged then, a site visit.
So that maybe answers or written answers can be provided as well to those points that's been raised by the
Okay, so we're going to pick up that, have that included in the minutes, and get answers provided to those questions from Councillor Chandwani. Yeah? Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, right, so we've got 8 minutes left. Well, anyone got anything else that they want to raise? Okay,
It's
so we
not
can
often
close.
you give people more time and they don't fill it.
Let's close the meeting there then. We only needed 2 in the end. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.